Sanctions against Iran led to the Third Gulf War after Iran blocked the Straits of Hormuz and suicide gunboats attacked the Fifth Fleet. America responded by bombing Iran back to the Stone Age. Israel helped by quietly murdering more Palestinians. Pakistan lent the Iranians a nuke which they used to threaten Israel, so America nuked them and then invaded Iran. Oil prices doubled, and for the first time in a decade the price of donuts in the UK exceeded 10 for a pound. The war will drag on for as long as it serves the needs of our shadowy puppet masters, with many of your children making the ultimate sacrifice for them, i.e. living in debt. The global economy crashed again in 2012 at the horrifying prospect of bankers not getting their money back, the fake money they lent to countries they knew couldn't afford to pay them back, which was okay actually because that's what they wanted anyway. So now they have even more debt slavery with which to browbeat nations into handing over de facto government of their countries via a series of bailouts with more fake money. Debtmocracy now rules the Western world. Some nutter with a strange and unexplained past killed lots of people using a very heavy Chromebook as a weapon. The atrocity was used as a pretext for harsh internet censorship and further surveillance of everyone on Earth. Now anyone who wants to publish anything on the internet has to be licensed by the Thought Police and promise not to express anything that might explode or cause independent thought. Millions of brown people starved to death in 2012 in front of our very eyes and were paraded in our media as evidence of how good it is not to be them. We watched and sent some blankets, but kept the border guards well supplied with ammunition. After all, it wouldn't do to share their fate. Rest assured though, there are a couple of continents ahead of us in the queue to die from malnutrition and easily treated illness. So cheer up and get back to work. In America, Europe and the Middle East, civil unrest continued to plague efforts to establish democracy and the rule over the poor. Democracy and the rule of law. New weapons and crowd control techniques are used by the authorities, such as the beating stick, the choking gas and detention without telling you. The Occupy movement in America are systematically crushed, its leaders rounded up and shot. That should be the Occupy movement is ignored and its leaders forced to work in the shops. Violent clashes with protesters in Russia mar the election of Putin as president of Russia again, but nobody in the West gives a fuck. After all, what's one more violent tyrant on the giant smorgasbord of violent tyrants? Anyway, Europe needs Russia's oil and gas, and America needs Putin to stay out of the escalating Syrian-Irania war. Anyway, we're all quite comfortable with Chinese tyranny, Saudi Arabian tyranny, blah blah blah, etc. Some kind of natural disaster killed a lot of brown people and filled the news up with endless pictures of suffering, distracting debt slaves from the price of donuts and the escalating war in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Libya and Egypt's revolutions spiraled into civil war as people realized nothing had really changed except the face on the poster in the room where the electrodes were attached to their testicles. Shopping continued to destroy our one and only home in the universe for no better reason than to make a few rich people even richer and prop up the arms trade. Billions of new consumers in the developing world were disappointed by news that the party is over, and if they want what we had, they'll have to kill us and/or the planet to get it. A recent study by Nature magazine found that 75% of all mammal species on Earth are at risk of extinction within 300 years. Shopped to death by humanity. Nice. As more unpalatable evidence of the Earth's biosystems collapsing under the weight of human stupidity emerges, some kind of conference or other was held in order to improve monitoring of our insanity. Delegates demanded that we have even better evidence and much greater measurements of our pollution, destruction, deforestation, mass extinction, peak water, peak oil, peak food, and peak life. In the UK, peasants will be forced to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Queen Lizard Breath II, as the Queen parades her opulence and power to the world in a series of events designed to obscure the fact that the real power and wealth of the monarchy are a few wealthy banking families propping up the throne like the Wizard of Oz behind his curtain. Their names, faces and activities unknown to the landless peasants whom they own and would cheerfully sacrifice for profit, power and more donuts. The Republican Party in America selected a candidate so incompetent and unelectable that Obama won by a country mile. Helped by the ongoing war in Irania or Siran or Afpakistan, the only man who could have beaten him, Ron Paul, failed to be selected after it was revealed that he couldn't be bribed and was simply not corrupt enough to be president. Though not officially described as an election fraud, the whole country felt cheated by Obama winning, with many people demanding that there not be a recount. And finally, the end of the world failed to materialize, and 2012 can now be referred to as the end of the world. Let us all join hands and thank ourselves for still being here to witness the ongoing horror of surviving in humanity's disgusting cesspool of fear, loathing, exploitation and greed. Let us give thanks to the fearmongers and misery monkeys who keep us from singing, dancing and having a good time, while we engage in the absurd belief that somehow the glory of existence will be made better by worrying about shit that hasn't happened or feeling bitterness about the shit that did happen. As 2013 approaches, let us all strive to ignore the obvious madness of our collective behaviour whilst throwing a great big garbage party. This, after all, is as good as it gets, and somewhere not far from our haven of utility oppression, there are starving brown people who we don't give a fuck about. Thanks. And now the weather. The planet's fucked, it's your fault, and it's getting worse. Have a nice weekend.